Welcome to Kerbal Space Program, a game in which you can build a variety of different vehicles and spacecraft, and launch them into space. But that's not what we're going to be doing today. Instead, I'll attempt to build 3 different Turboprop Flight Simulator aircraft in Kerbal Space Program and see if they fly. Spoiler alert, nothing went well. Let's get started. I'll start by attempting to build the iconic C400, which in itself is modeled after the real-life A400M Atlas. Please mind that I'm playing in career mode, so I haven't unlocked all parts and functionalities yet. If anything, this should add to the challenge and make the video more entertaining. Alright, I'll start replacing the Mark III cockpit, since it looks the most similar to the A400M's cockpit. Now, this is where the challenge actually begins. I want to recreate the A400M's cargo bay, but in case P, the only cargo bay compatible with this part looks like this. Now you may think to yourself, oh, no big deal, just close it. But that's not the problem here. The problem is that I can't place parts where the cargo bay doors are. So as a workaround, I'll just flip it upside down, sacrificing the accuracy of the interior. With that out of the way, for now, I'll place the ideally shaped Mark III cargo ramp. Before building the wings, I decided to shorten the plane's fuselage, because I thought it was a bit too long. That's the truth. I placed some Mark II fuselage parts to function as the A400M's center ring box. Then I placed some ramp air intakes to function as the mid-air refueling probe. Note that Case B does not have any mid-air refueling functionality, so this is purely for aesthetics. Now I can finally begin working on the wings. This took quite a while as I didn't quite know how to replicate the A400M's wings in Case B, so I'll speed through this because honestly it was quite boring to watch. Eventually, I settled on this wing design and moved on to the tail, which was a bit more straightforward. The horizontal stabilizers were probably the easiest part of the entire build. They even looked somewhat accurate, but then I had to ruin it by putting this fuel tank between them. Then I began working on the engines. This was the most difficult part of the build, as I had no idea how to use turboshaft engines in KSP. I'll spare you the pain and speed through this. After that, I decided to test the engines to see how they work. Turns out, they were a lot more complicated than I expected. I returned to the editor and finished building the other set of engines. I did watch some tutorials on how to operate turboshaft engines in KSP, but none of them really helped. Not that the tutorials are bad, I'm just stupid. I tested the engines again and while the engines did spin, the wings were too weak to hold them. If only I knew that back then. Either way, I decided to forget about that and move on to work on the landing gears. After that, I made some small adjustments and prepared the aircraft for first flight. Which didn't go too well. I mean, the plane didn't even move. I decided to just design the wings and engines once again, and if you thought that was tedious, you'd be absolutely right. The new wings looked a lot more similar to the A400M's wings than the previous ones. However, that's not our main focus right now. Our main focus is to get this airplane moving, and for that, I need to figure out how to get these turboshaft engines to work. Spoiler alert, I never did, and I still don't now. At this point, I knew that I just couldn't get these engines to work in time, so I decided to cheat and place some jet engines because these are very straightforward to operate. You simply grease the throttle, and they propel. Let's just ignore the wings. I was so hurried to finish recording that I'd completely forgotten to check the thrust-to-weight ratio. In other words, these engines were way too weak to get this aircraft flying. Too bad for me, I still have to make 2 more planes, and boy were they a disaster. But let's just focus on our current aircraft for now. Speaking of which, yeah, who would have seen that coming? Turns out, the cause of this crash was actually the horizontal stabilizers, which were inverted. Okay, it seems like we're getting some lift here. It took us the whole runway to get off the ground, but it doesn't seem like we're gonna be airborne for too long. Yeah, you know what? Screw this. On to the next aircraft. Our next aircraft is the RL-72, which is modeled after the real-life ATR-72. Now this is probably going to be the most inaccurate aircraft recreation so far, as we don't even have a cockpit that is similar in shape and size to the ATR. So I'm going to use the Mark 1 cockpit. Yeah, it looks nothing like the ATR, but it's the most similar in size, so I take it. God, this is the ugliest aircraft I've ever seen. Why is the tail so huge? Let's rebuild that. Still ugly, let's see if it flies. The wings are infinitely more stable than the ones on the A400M. This video is a complete failure. At this point I didn't even care if it looked like the ATR. I just moved the main gears back to avoid more tail strikes. It seems like the only way we can get this thing to fly is to veer off the runway, so let's do that. Oh, it's actually flying. I guess this video isn't much of a failure after all. Never mind, we're stalling. Enjoy the crash. Honestly, I don't even care anymore. Let's just move on to the third and final aircraft. Our final aircraft of the video is gonna be the PV-40, an aircraft completely unique. And yes, this was a failure too, so you might as well click off this video now before I waste more of your time. If you thought that these small motors aren't enough to hold the weight of the wings, you'd be correct. This is so ugly. Erectile dysfunction. Alright, fine, shut up. I didn't know how to make the wings actually rotate, so I gave up on that, and added struts. And now that I think of it, I should have probably done that with the A400M. Wow, it literally became a bird for a second there. At this point I was going insane, and was ready to do anything to get this recording done. So I did what any sane person wouldn't, and placed 4 rocket engines in place of the jet engines. I had completely forgotten this is supposed to be a turboprop aircraft. never expected this aircraft to fly for so long. I was absolutely baffled. Until we inevitably ran out of fuel. Oh yeah, and the wings absolutely do not rotate. So this aircraft failed at the one thing that made it unique. I wonder whose fault that is. And that should be the end of today's disastrous video. I'm very sorry for wasting your time with this one. I do plan on making a second part of this video where everything works. But I don't know when. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, only took what? 2 recordings? Yeah, actually only took 2 recordings. The previous one is kind of test, so... Well then, probably necessary. And that will be the end of today's disastrous video. I'm very sorry for wasting your time with this one. I do plan on making a second part of this video where everything works, but I don't know when. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh yeah, and the wings absolutely do not rotate. So this aircraft failed at absolutely one thing. So this aircraft failed at the one thing that made it unique. So this aircraft failed at the one thing that made it unique. So this aircraft failed at the one